So in this video, I'm trimming a Laminitic mini. This is a few cycles after his episode, but as you can see in this x-ray, he had some rotation of the coffin bone and some sinking of the coffin bone. So we've had him on a really short schedule to try to realign the hoof capsule with the bony column. And he was in cast for, I think, just a cycle or two to provide some comfort and some stability to his hoof capsule. And that worked really well for this little guy because his feet are so small. You'd have to kind of specially build a shoe for him, and boots weren't working very well. So casting it was, and it worked great for this guy. So because he's on such a short cycle, this is sort of a maintenance trim for a laminitic horse. And the main thing that I focus on when I see the pathology that I saw in his x-ray is I'm going to really take the heels down as far and as back as I possibly can. So usually in order to do that, I have to take the frog down a little bit, like I just did. And then, get those heels back, get them lowered, get them beveled, get them nice and smooth. And then because his lamellar wedge has grown out about 50%, I'm starting to really remove it now at the toe. And you can see at the toe there's all that stretched lamina right there, and that shows me that he's had a pretty significant episode even if I hadn't seen x-rays on him. So checking the balance, and that's about it from the Now that I have this front foot forward on the stand, I'm going to address that lamellar wedge at the toe. And you can kind of see there's a line that goes halfway down the front of his foot. And I don't really want to rasp above that line today. I just want to remove any extra leverage. I found with this little guy that if I leave too much leverage in the toe, he'll be uncomfortable. So some horses I'll leave a bit more wedge, some horses I take a bit more wedge. But I always gauge it on that individual horse's comfort level. So I've kind of figured out what he likes, and now I'm trying to replicate it during each trim. So now I'm picking out this horse's left front hoof, and this little guy, he actually had laminitis in all 4 feet, which I don't actually typically see, but he did. So both fronts were affected and both hinds were affected. So I'm going to trim all 4 hooves fairly similarly. So you can see right now I'm starting in the heel, because even at 3 weeks, he's grown a lot of heel height, and that's pretty typical for horses or minis that have had a laminitic episode. And with this guy, I think he had laminitis. It was either September or October. And when horses have laminitis like that in the fall, it makes me suspicious that they have some sort of metabolic issue. So we're not sure with him. He might have EMS, equine metabolic syndrome, or he might have PPID, aka Cushing's. Usually when it happens in the fall, that's a Cushing's case, but this last fall we saw a lot of horses with EMS that were struggling in the fall. So I don't know which one he has. I just know that he's gone through a period of accelerated growth after the laminitic episode, and we're keeping him on a short cycle until his heels stop growing so fast. So that's my main focus in this trim, is taking down those heels to bring that coffin bone down a little bit, as long as the tendons in the back of the leg, like the DDFT, the deep digital flexor tendon, can handle that. And so far, he's handled that great. So heels come down first, and even when you have them down pretty far, I take them a little bit farther than I think they should be, and that works pretty well for a lot of laminitics. So now I'm beveling his foot a little bit, making that heel smooth, addressing that wedge a little bit from the bottom, but I'm probably going to address the lamellar wedge on this foot a lot more from the top, because I don't really want to take the wall down a whole lot from the bottom. I just want to collect that foot and kind of bring it in and back, which I can achieve from trimming from the top. So now I'm getting after that wedge on this little guy's front hoof. You can see I'm rasping a lot more off than I would during a normal trim. This is not your typical bevel. I'm trying to not go farther up than halfway up the hoof wall if possible. And I'm just rasping through that wedge to bring that toe wall back to where it originally would be. So you can see all the stretched lamina starting to show up as I remove that wall. And like I said, there's different ways to trim laminitics based on that horse's individual comfort levels. but this is what this guy likes, which is nice because it helps us realign the hoof wall faster. So he's getting a little impatient with me. He was a little uncomfortable bringing those front feet forward, so I tried to rasp as fast as I could.
Okay.
Moving on to this guy's hinds. His hinds are in a lot better shape than his fronts, which is actually fairly typical of Laminitics. And I think mostly because the horse carries 2/3 of its weight on its front feet. So when you have an inflammatory event like this, there's much more pressure on the front feet than on the hinds. So that's my little theory, at least. So this is going to be a little bit more of a normal trim. I'm still going to take his heels down substantially. I don't have x-rays of the hinds, but I'm assuming he does have at least rotation on these hinds by the amount of wedge he has in the toe. I don't think he had as much sinking because he still has a lot of concavity in this hoof, and the apex of his frog is still relatively deep, so he gets more of a maintenance trim on this foot. But you can see as I start rasping this hoof, especially in the toe, you'll start to see where all that lamina is stretched, just like on the front hooves. So I'm going to rasp through it. Oh, he was getting a little fed up with me. I try to be really fast with these guys because I know they're uncomfortable. So got that foot back up on the stand. Gonna finish rasping those heels. Be very careful when trimming minis that you don't rasp your knuckles off, or if you think you might, wear gloves, because it's very easy to do so because you can't really hide your fingers very well behind the hoof wall while you're holding that hoof. So just cleaning up those bars, removing any dead sole that exists. But that foot's looking a lot better, looking a lot more normal. When that wedge grows out, he'll probably look pretty good. In this video, you'll probably notice that I don't have any footage of me bringing the hinds forward, and that's because the simple fact that this guy is just so small and so hairy that you just would not be able to see the hoofs very well, and I have to hold the hoof. He's so small I can't put it up on my stand when I bring it forward, so I just didn't take any video of that part of the trim. So same thing on this hind. He still had a laminitic episode in this hoof, so I'm going to address the heels first, take them down pretty far using my nippers first. And for me to use my nippers as much as I'm doing on this very small hoof at a 3-week interval can kind of tell you how fast his hooves are still growing, even though I think this footage was taken in October, and that's a time of year when the hooves should be slowing down. But his were not. His were actually growing faster than normal. So that's also another sign that the horse is still having inflammatory issues. So took those heels down. Now I'm addressing the toe. Don't want to remove too much height from the bottom. You can see his sole is still in really good shape. So I don't want to accidentally damage it in any way. And I want this hoof to still have as much support as possible. But I also want to bring that breakover back. So there's a fine line between taking too much toe and leaving the amount of toe that the horse still needs to have a strong, healthy hoof capsule. So just taking those bars down because they were a little high after I rasped the heels down a little bit more. And then I did finish this hoof from the top. There's just no footage of it. So that's this little guy. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.